In the Frieren manga, Fern and Stark actually do end up going on an official date. I'm sure most of us, including Frieren herself, expected this to happen eventually, and it honestly didn't take that long for it to happen either. We will likely see it animated early on in season 2 next year. Of course, for right now, this will cover some spoilers from the manga, specifically chapter 66 and 67. So there's your warning, if you just want to wait to see it in season 2. But yeah, this all takes place in a fortified city in the northern lands, and mainly due to Frieren spending way too much time relaxing in the hot spring. Meanwhile, Fern is complaining about it to Stark while they're just waiting in their room. Chances are, they're gonna have an entire free day tomorrow too. Stark agrees and figures he'll go visit an armory since he needs to get his axe sharpened, but Fern specifically reminds him that she herself is free tomorrow too, and he should consider keeping her company. Fern goes further by saying Stark isn't being thoughtful or attentive, which hurts Stark a little bit. As Fern goes back to reading her book, Stark thinks how she's always so harsh to him, and decides that he does have to get even with her, almost like he forgot what happened last time he tried to get back at her when he touched her face. This time, however, Stark tries a different approach and says if she wants to hang out, then they'll make it a date. Immediately, Fern drops her book on the ground, like she's in complete shock that Stark finally got the memo. At first, Stark thinks she's gonna attack him again, but to his surprise, Fern says fine, before walking out and slamming the door behind her, leaving her book behind too. We then cut straight to Stark asking Frieren for advice, which is definitely an interesting choice. Although, Frieren claims that she knows what girls will want, since she is a lady too at least. Stark first asks how Frieren would feel if he asked her out, and Frieren just starts nodding her head like a proud grandma and saying that he's grown so much. She might even treat him for dinner. Of course, being compared to a grandma is an insult to the elf, and it marks the second time Stark has called her old, the first time being when he called her an old hag. Frieren even warns Bro that there won't be a third time. If there is, then Frieren threatens to cry and scream. Apparently, Frieren is so scary when throwing a tantrum that even Himmel trembled with fear. She cried for at least 3 whole days too. Now that Stark has been warned, Frieren asks if Stark is actually going on the date with Fern. He was thinking to just say never mind, since Fern didn't seem to be in the mood. But that's also why Stark wanted to ask Frieren about the places Fern would like. Fortunately for him, Frieren knows exactly what places Fern would like, and is generous enough to show Stark. They visit multiple locations in the city, and end up in an open, quiet space with a nice view, overlooking the city. Frieren claims Hyter would know Fern better though, since he told her what Fern liked every chance he got. It was like Hyter wished for Frieren to take the place of her parents, although she believes that even now, she barely knew what Fern liked. However, like Stark says, at least Frieren was able to remember what Hyter told her at least, and she is doing a decent job as a parent. That's one of the nicest things Frieren has heard Stark say, and just for that, she will roll back the count for calling her old by 1, which Stark is extremely grateful for. Of course, Frieren has to deal with the other side of the date too, with Fern, who also wants to know what to do. The next day, we see that Fern's stuck on 2 dresses, and asks Frieren which one she thinks will look better on her. The elf is still half asleep and just says they both look the same. More importantly, Fern needs to tie Frieren's hair before going out. However, that was not the answer Fern was looking for, and in response, she angrily braids Frieren's hair. Once her hair is done, Frieren goes right back to the hot spring, while Stark and Fern link up for the date, and head into town together. Bro is just wearing his same usual outfit, and notices that Fern is actually wearing something different, since it's a date. Now that he's actually looking at her, Stark questions if Fern has always been that cute too. The first place they go to is a market nearby, although Fern points out it's the same one Frieren has been going to a lot recently. Apparently, it's because you can sometimes find rare magical items at a market in a large town. It's also why there's literally a huge pile of stuff back at the inn, and one day, Fern even saw Frieren asleep under that whole mess. To them, it's a bit scary how deep Frieren is into that stuff. Quite literally, as she was buried deep in that pile. Once at the market area, they check out some stalls together. One of the vendors selling jewelry even has a discount for couples on their items, and Stark points out how going on a date is economical too. Still though, most of the stuff at the market was just ordinary stuff, and Fern would have been shocked if all they had were magical items. Since it's not every day they get to explore a town, Stark takes the lead as they go explore other areas. They first get a quick snack to eat before visiting a statue of Amel, and then they have a nice meal together later. before standing at the same spot Stark was at yesterday with Frieren, with the view overlooking the city. Fern points out how there are statues of Himmel in every town they visit, and they both agree that the pose in this town was pretty cool. According to Frieren, Himmel's statues also come with over 100 different poses, which isn't too surprising, but Fern does think they made a bit too many. Unfortunately, that was one of Himmel's only ways of expressing his love to Frieren, in a way that could transcend time itself. With so many unique poses, Frieren won't be the only one who remembers they existed. She won't be alone in that sense. As for Fern and Stark's current location overlooking the city, it's a quiet place, and Fern finds it beautiful. However, Stark can tell that Fern isn't actually having that much fun. Fern tries to say that's not true, but Stark noticed Fern hasn't smiled even once yet, and Fern can't even deny it. While Stark did take her to places she'd normally like, they didn't feel like places he would choose on his own, even though they finally got the chance to go on a date alone. Stark then apologizes to Fern and reveals that he did go ask Frieren to pick some places out. He just wanted to make sure Fern would be happy no matter what, since this is their first date after all. The first of many, it sounds like. Fern does admit today disappointed her somewhat, but she's also very happy to know that Stark also did his very best by trying to at least make sure she was happy. They then sit on a bench together, and Fern acknowledges how it's so peaceful right now, while also being strange for her. After all, Fern was a war orphan, and could never imagine being able to relax like this. She thanks Heiter for giving her the chance to have this type of opportunity, and Stark thanks Eisen as well. During a brief flashback, we see Eisen cooking something for a young Stark, and he asks why Eisen adopted someone like him. His answer is that it's what Himmel the hero would have done, and we see the statue the couple walked by earlier. Now later that night, we see Frieren is still in that same hot spring, but Fern has joined her now. Frieren can tell Fern is in a good mood now, and asks if something happened. Although Fern says not really, she can't stop smiling. And the next day, when they're back on their journey, Stark points out that Frieren's hair is braided again. The thing is, although Stark doesn't see a difference, those are the braids Frieren gets when Fern is in a good mood. In the end, it seems Fern enjoyed the date very much. Even though it isn't often, it's cool how the author is willing to have chapters openly developing their romantic relationship, with it fitting so perfectly within the flow of the story. Perhaps we'll get more of these types of chapters in the future, and maybe even see them married one day. Well, hopefully not too far, or we'll be like Frieren having to watch them die together too. That's a bit dark though, so yeah. How do y'all feel about their relationship? And do y'all enjoy seeing the progression through the main story? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. I got some more Frieren content here too that you can check out. Peace.